Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming your way to do a movie review. Today I will be reviewing the movie by the name of Sea of Love. So the reason we ended up seeing this movie, which is something I'd never seen until just recently, probably obviously would have seen the VHS cover in the video store in the early 90s, but wasn't really interested in something like this, being 13 years old at the time when it came out on VHS. The whole reason that I'm reviewing this, or the whole reason I saw it, which is why I'm reviewing it, which led to me reviewing it, is because, as you may or may not know, I came across the factory sealed VHS from 1990 of this at Half Price Books. Did a showcasing video on that VHS, which interested me and Beth to want to actually see it, because it's like, oh, this is really cool. But I've never seen it. Kind of made me want to see it. Obviously, we weren't going to open the factory sealed VHS that was decades old. We're not going to open the factory sealed VHS to watch it, so we ended up seeing it online, and I thought it was pretty good. I mean, frickin' 1989, it would have come out in theaters, and you know, back then, in my opinion, movies were a lot better more often than they are now. And I guess I looked a little bit online, and it's said that this is possibly like a comeback movie for Al Pacino. Would have been a year before the theatrical release of Godfather Part 3, but it's said that this is a possible return, you know, to popularity a little bit for Al Pacino after maybe several years of a slump, or who knows. I'm not an Al Pacino fan necessarily, so I haven't been paying attention, but this is like the late 80s when all these kind of movies, and I'm not a big fan of the genre per se, of like Fatal Attraction, and this is before Basic Instinct. Basic Instinct would be something that had come out in the early 90s and be very similar. It seemed like they were making a lot of these kind of movies, you know, in the 80s, maybe mid to late 80s. Another one was like Jagged Edge and stuff, you know, men, kind of sexy thrillers where men are possibly getting tangled up with dangerous, murderous women kind of thing, and never a genre that I really ever cared about one way or another. But having seen this on the internet, or being able to watch it online, it was actually pretty cool. And the opening scene is kind of an interesting way to introduce the Al Pacino character as being a New York cop, or whatever the hell he is in this movie. Kind of a way to, well, I won't spoil the beginning, but an interesting way to start the movie and introduce his character. And kind of the way the scene ends was kind of, I kind of called it, you know, when the dad came up with the son and stuff, hoping to see, you know, the New York Yankees baseball team or whatever. I knew what was going to happen, you know. It was kind of a little insight into the character of Al Pacino. But Al Pacino plays this drunk, kind of this workaholic drunk who's, you know, was he divorced, separated, or I think he's divorced from his former wife, and he's just midlife crisis, and he's an alcoholic and a workaholic, just, you know, obviously probably sexually frustrated, one could only assume. And what ends up happening is there becomes these murders which are happening with just men, you know, just face down naked men in a bed that get shot through the back of the head. And there's this song that's playing, Sea of Love, because at first I was like, the title, I was just like, what the hell kind of title is that? But it's the name of the song that's played while the crimes are being committed, presumably by some woman. Basically, they end up, as they look further and further into the situation, I think there's two of these murders that happen in the early portion of the film, and they, as this, you know, continues to happen, they figure out that it's basically some woman who's using, you know, the good old days before the internet. This woman is using the newspaper dating ads to go through these guys and kill the, you know, presumably find these guys and date these guys and get them naked and kill these guys or whatever. So they come up with this, you know, Al Pacino, and incidentally John Goodman is a supporting character in this movie as well. And I don't want to forget to mention that the guy Glazer from The Burning from 1981 he's also in this. The only other thing I've seen him in very briefly was the mugger in the Meryl Streep, Roy Scheider movie, Still of the Night. It's cool to see him in an actual like role where he's actually got talking scenes, sitting around a table with John Goodman, Al Pacino, and this kind of stuff. So it's actually kind of, you know, kind of cool to see Glazer in an actual, you know, later on in the late 80s, actually with Al Pacino and John Goodman and stuff. I bet he thought he was on cloud nine, frickin' working with Al Pacino and stuff. But it was really cool. I would imagine he's in all kinds of movies that were filmed in New York in the 80s and stuff. So it's really cool to see Glazer in quite a big movie with a big, movie star and all that kind of stuff. So that was fun. Also, Michael Rooker is also in this movie, and the role that I first seen him in was, of course, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, that was released on home video in North America in 1990, I want to say. And to me, he was just like the perfect casting for that movie. And to me, ever since, he's always been Henry. And his physicality was just so perfectly embodied, just a serial killer, just because he seemed so, his physicality and the way he is, just naturally, Michael Rooker, is very believable of, playing a serial, he looks like a serial killer, so I doubt Michael Rooker's going to be watching this, so I don't have to worry about offending him or hurting his feelings. But those are some of the, some of the other familiar faces that can be seen. Oh my God, don't forget the scene with William Hickey as the puppet master, or no, he's not puppet master in this movie, but the same year, right around the same time he did Puppet Master, William Hickey makes an appearance as Al Pacino's dad. And it's funny because William Hickey, I don't know how the hell old he would have been in this movie, but anyway, I don't think he was as old as he looked. He played older parts because he had some kind of condition that made him look older than he really was or whatever. But yeah, some familiar faces from the 80s can be seen in Sea of Love. But as the movie wears on, it's about they figure out, well, why doesn't John Goodman and Al Pacino figure out, well, since this supposed or most likely woman, mass murderer woman is finding men through this dating ad, let's put an ad out. And they figure out like certain things, like she likes poetry or certain that she ends up meeting some of the guys that maybe do poetry or whatever, corny ass rhymey newspaper ads for dates and stuff. So they do a goofy ass rhymey kind of poetry ad and end up doing these dates with these women trying to find this murderer, and in the course of doing that, and I gotta say, this movie's got actually a really fun sense of humor. I probably laughed out loud several times. I really love it when a movie like this, which is more or less a serious kind of a suspense sexy thriller. I really love it when a movie's got a good sense of humor. I really connect with the movie that does, And this movie's got a fun sense of humor, and Al Pacino, I will say, is really good in this movie, and John Goodman's fun in this movie, late 80s John Goodman and things. So they end up going through a series of like dates and stuff, and in doing so, Al Pacino ends up meeting this woman played by Ellen, is it Barkin? I remember seeing her face back in on VHS covers and backs of covers in the late 80s, early 90s, but I don't think I'd ever seen a movie with her in until I saw this movie. And she's relatively attractive. She's kind of got a little bit of a weird face in my opinion, but a pretty nice body. I don't think there's a body double. Was it her body that was all nude and naked in this movie? It's hard to tell. I think it was, but I just saw it once, so it's hard to remember everything. But Ellen Barkin is the sexy, suspect chick that, as the movie wears on, that Al Pacino and her kind of get entangled, and kind of a little bit of drama ensues. We've seen the same kind of thing before or since this movie or whatever, where Al Pacino's trying to hide the fact, obviously, that he's a cop. He says he works as a printer or something in a printing company or whatever. He's lying, of course, and as the movie wears on, she's like, oh, I hate guys. You're so much different than other guys because you're honest, and other guys always end up being liars and cheats, and obviously there's a drama with him trying to keep his identity secret, and it ends up coming out, and he kind of lies, and it's actually not a lie. He's kind of like, he can both lie and not lie at the same time as to why he, when she finds out he's a cop, he's like, well, this is why, because the dates are always over when women find that out, kind of thing. And so it's actually kind of half a lie and maybe mostly not a lie. And obviously the fact that we introduce his character at the beginning of the movie with the fact that he's, a divorced guy, is, whatever, midlife crisis, and most likely sexually frustrated and just a drunk workaholic guy. Obviously he's very much open to a relationship with a sexy young chick, in this case Ellen Barkin, and just basically a thriller as the movie wears on. Of course, is this the dangerous woman they're after, and I won't spoil that for you, whether or not she is or not, I won't spoil it. I'll say that you should probably watch it yourself to find out. But I will say, even though I'm not a big fan of this kind of subgenre of thrillers, sexy thrillers or whatever, dangerous women movies from the 80s, I did find this to be a particularly interesting movie, and I debated whether or not to get the Blu-ray. It's like under $10, but maybe I'll find it. Maybe I'll get the DVD if I can find it for even cheaper, used somewhere or whatever. But definitely a movie I can see, wanting to revisit, because the performances by, John Goodman and even Ellen Barkin and definitely Al Pacino are actually really pretty good. And the movie's got a funny sense of humor and really cleverly written in a lot of ways, and the dialogue and stuff. So it's an all-around enjoyable movie, which I guess I can go as high as 3 stars out of 4 stars for Sea of Love. Definitely something I'd recommend. It's really, really cool to see for the very first time a movie from 1989. At this point 35 years ago. For the very first time, 35 years later after its theatrical release, I saw this movie for the very first time. And in this era, and if you've seen a lot of my videos, you know that as time goes on and as I become even more and more less young, it's just like I yearn more and more. And obviously this is just something that just goes with getting older from many generations. It's nothing new, but as I get older, I yearn more and more for the days of old and the good old days, as quote unquote good old days. And it was fun to see this movie for the very first time, and it's like, wow, this is what a lot more percentage of movies were back in the day. Like, a movie was more or less good back in the day. Maybe a higher percentage of being good, maybe 75% chance of a movie being good in 1989 versus now, which would be probably for me, under 10%, like maybe a 5% chance of a movie being good these days that came out now. So it's like the percentage, in my opinion, of the chance of a movie actually being good has gone down considerably in 35 years, if you haven't noticed. But I think that'll pretty much do it for my my review of Sea of Love. We'll probably pick up the DVD if I can find it, used, or Blu-ray if I can find it cheap enough, used or something down the road or whatever. Nothing that I need to see again anytime soon necessarily, but it's definitely worth a visit if you like this kind of. Yeah, it seems like there were a whole hell of a lot of dangerous women movies in the 80s, and some of which I probably never heard of or can't remember off the top of my head or whatever, but this is definitely another one of them, which has a funny kind of, also in addition to the sexiness of it and the suspense, whatever, it's also got actually humorous bits and things. So obviously John Goodman supplies a lot of that as well. So more or less recommended movie. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.